Over the past 7 or 8 years, New Super Luigi U has arguably slowly garnered an online reputation of being the best or most unique New Super Mario Bros. Game, at least without taking nostalgia for the first 2 games into account. Regardless, people generally prefer it over New Super Mario Bros. U. And though I agree it is certainly unique, I wouldn't really say that makes it all that great per se. Hello everyone, Rimea here. Today I'll be taking a look at how New Super Luigi U's level design differs from the other games in the series, and why this is both a good and a bad thing. This way I'll be able to answer the question, is New Super Luigi U really all that good? There's this common joke in the New Super Mario Bros. U modding community that New Super Luigi U was essentially a mod of the original game made by Nintendo themselves. And in practice, this is basically the case. With only a few exceptions, all New Super Luigi U does is basically remake every level in the original game to be 100 seconds long and a lot more difficult. The physics are a bit different, there are only a few new objects, no new bosses or power-ups, and the world map has remained identical. Thus, it might seem surprising to some that many people would consider this game so unique, given it's technically the most derivative game in the series. Of course, comparing New Super Luigi U's differences with that of other games in the series isn't totally fair. After all, the game launched for $20 if bought as DLC, and still only $30 when purchased separately, half the price of the other games in the series. Yet, the way New Super Luigi U does differ from the original, that being its levels, is still far from perfect. In order for me to explain how I believe New Super Luigi U's level design is often lackluster or next to non-existent, let's take a look at some levels in this DLC and compare them to the original game's equivalent levels. I would argue 2-5, Dry Desert Mushrooms, is one of the best designed levels in the original New Super Mario Bros. U. Don't believe me? Well, let's go through it. Right away, the player is introduced to 2 of the stage's main mechanics. These platforms that move along tracks, and stone spikes which will throw boulders down at the player. Notice how the platform here is very large and moves very slowly, so the player can get a hang of the mechanic before it gets more complicated later on in the stage. The player is given a power-up while reinforcing the stone spike mechanic, and then we see a variation of the earlier platform formation, only now a smaller platform is present below the main one, allowing the player to collect the first star coin. Then a variation of the moving platform mechanic is demonstrated to the player while still keeping them alert with some stone spikes present up above. Now that the first 2 mechanics have been firmly established, it's time to introduce the third, these pink stretching mushrooms. The player is also cleverly forced to make use of the platform without actually being in any kind of danger with the way the power block is placed above it. Now, logically, the stretching mushroom mechanic is combined with the stone spikes in order to create a final challenge before the midway checkpoint. The player is given another power-up, and now for the first time all 3 mechanics are combined at once by placing the usual stone spike foes on the stretching mushrooms established earlier. Now the player faces the same formation as at the beginning of the level, only now with 2 twists. The stone spikes are on a stretching mushroom, and there's this green coin ring challenge, meaning the player might want to move around a lot more here before moving on. Once again, the same section is repeated, and once again the player can get a star coin by going down below the second platform. This bonus room is simple enough. I like how it uses the stretching mushrooms in a relatively unique way. There's this fun little thing to break up the tension here, where the player has a chance to receive one final power-up by throwing this Koopa shell down at the red block. And now the final challenge follows, with all mechanics combined into one large section with more enemies and moving elements to keep track of than ever before. Though this stage is nothing special mechanically, after all, one could complain about the fact that none of these mechanics are at all new to the franchise. It is definitely a prime example of traditional 2D Mario design at its finest. And now let's take a look at the New Super Luigi U stage that takes its place. 2-5 Stone Spike Conveyors starts off somewhat similarly to its New Super Mario Bros. U counterpart. Instead of the player being taught to maneuver under stone spikes by using a platform, here the player is told to go over stone spikes which themselves move on the platform. New Super Luigi U has a tendency to contain super simple star coins, mostly due to the way the 100-second time limits don't allow for elaborate bonus rooms or challenges. And this trend is quite apparent in this stage as well, starting with this first star coin. The player is given a power-up, and then reaches this frankly insane conveyor belt contraption made out of the platforms the original stage also used. Another common tendency of New Super Luigi U level design is to take the platform the original stage used and, well, go crazy with it. Much like how people will often find unique ways to use mechanics seen in original Mario games in their Mario Maker levels, New Super Luigi U levels often feature these unorthodox uses of mechanics seen in New Super Mario Bros. U. Anyways, once again there's some stone spikes here, and the player can move on by navigating their way up to them. What follows is a much tamer, slower, and easier conveyor belt section, now with only one stone spike, which also protects the second star coin. And then a green coin section similar to the one found in the original stage. Heck, this section is extremely tame and simple compared to the previous two sections. And after a random lonely stone spike, the stage finally gets to arguably its main setup, halfway through the stage that is, with these fast moving platforms forcing the player to jump over the stone spikes. After two of those is a similar, albeit larger section with the stone spikes which don't really pose a threat, a super simple third star coin, and that's it. So yeah, that was certainly not horrible, perhaps a bit all over the place, but well, I wouldn't really say that was better in any ways than the original either. Sure, the Luigi U level was a bit more frantic and difficult, but honestly not by much. And apart from that, the star coins were laughably simple, and new mechanical ideas were thrown at the screen every few seconds with no time to breathe or actually build up anything except maybe the final platform section. So, for as unique as people claim New Super Luigi U is, a lot of the stages are basically duplicates of their New Super Mario Bros. U counterparts. Only with a higher difficulty, arguably worse star coins, maybe a few cool ideas, though they're rarely given enough attention to be worthwhile, and then after 100 seconds, boom, onto the next stage, which is probably the same all over again. There are in fact numerous stages which don't directly mirror their New Super Mario Bros. U counterparts, and this can have some, let's say, mixed results. Sometimes you end up with something great. For example, I'm a big fan of 6-7, which uses these switch-activated metal boxes in numerous creative ways to craft a stage the likes of which hasn't been seen before in any other New Super Mario Bros. Game. However, often you'll just end up with the stage repeating the same somewhat unique idea over and over again. Take 8-3 for example. The stage has this unique combination of pudaboos plus gears as its main mechanic. So the stage starts off with that combination, then it's done again. Then there's a lazy star coin and some pudaboo spam. Then the combination is repeated another 3 times in a row. Then there's a lazy star coin in combination with some pudaboo spam. Then the pudaboo gear combination is repeated twice over again, and the stage is done. Heck, this isn't even the first New Super Luigi U stage to combine gears and the fire mechanic. There are loads of these kinds of spammy repetitive stages all throughout the game, a true sign of how rushed the development of this project must have been. Another thing New Super Luigi U stages often do is taking the original stage's mechanic and simply adding one more object or enemy to it. This is also why there are burners in this stage, for example. This can have some great results. For example, I'd argue Luigi U's 5-1 is made much more interesting by focusing on swinging vines instead of simply spamming giant enemies all the way through the stage like the original one did. And some stages simply feel much more complete by adding that one extra mechanic. For example, the originally repetitive One-Ash Castle is made much more interesting by adding these spotlights, which swing along with the platforms. Like, these spotlight objects truly feel like they were made with this combination in mind, even though I'm pretty sure they actually weren't. But on the other hand, this also results in some peculiar combinations, such as 7-2's Wigglers and Munchers in a sky setting. God, this feels like a Mario Maker stage. And then there's some stages which have additional mechanics for no other reason than, well, to make them feel slightly more unique, I guess. Even though I really can't tell you what these firebars are doing in 7-Ash Castle, for example. Look at a stage I've discussed previously on the channel, for example, 7-Ash Airship. The addition of this cloud platform, originally used in 7-1 of New Super Mario Bros. U, feels completely out of place, and the original epic feeling of the stage is entirely gone. Something I do like about New Super Luigi U is a lot of the additional tile sets the game uses. They make it feel like a bit more than just a level pack. Generally, though New Super Mario Bros. U's tile sets look great in my opinion, they do lack decorative elements. Thus, additions like the numerous bone formations in World 2 or the snowmen in World 4 allowed Luigi U's presentation to surpass the original game, if only slightly. Peach's Castle now actually feels like, well, Peach's Castle, with the way they've integrated these stone structures into the levels. There are even some brand new tile sets, such as these vine platforms in World 5, or this random stage in World 7 which uses these rainbow formations throughout. And some additions even feel like they should have been in place from the very beginning, like how the World 6 cave stages look a bit like the World 6 above ground stages now with these block formations, not to mention the cool looking scaffold structures also used all throughout this world. World 1 style set is a bit weird to me though, not gonna lie. Not to mention they seemingly couldn't be bothered to make the Rolling Hill versions of any of these new tile sets, so 1-3 just inexplicably uses the default NSMBU U tile set. Whereas some additions in New Super Luigi U feel like they were always meant to be. Most of them simply feel like random additions to make the game feel more unique. And hey, it seems like this trick worked. Like I said at the beginning of this video, the internet seemingly loves this rushed DLC campaign much more than the original game it borrows from so heavily. But yeah, that's it for this video guys. Much like New Super Luigi U, this video was a bit rushed and all over the place to be honest. However, I think I've gotten my opinion across. If you enjoyed this ramble, please consider leaving a like or maybe even subscribing, that would be nice. Anyways, have a good day and see you next time guys. Bye!